All right, welcome to our inaugural Opportunities in Health IT session. I'm Charlene Banta. I'm the Program Director of the Health Information Technology Program at St. John's River State College here in St. Augustine. We are pleased to partner with the Northeast Florida Health Information Management Association to offer these monthly Lunch and Learn sessions featuring the stories of health IT and health information management professionals. A couple of quick housekeeping items before we get started. Everyone on the call is muted, so feel free to enter any questions that you have in the chat box. We will open up those lines at the end for a Q&A session, but for now we will keep everyone muted. One continuing education unit will be granted for attendance for those who need that. And the process for claiming that credit will be shared at the end of the presentation. And also this presentation is being recorded. Our speaker today is Geri Newman. Geri serves as an HIM EMR Clinical Analyst at UF Health Shands Hospital. She is a registered health information technician and a certified healthcare technology specialist implementation manager. Geri holds a bachelor's degree in healthcare services administration and is currently pursuing a master's in healthcare informatics. She is the past president of the Northeast Florida Health Information Management Association and currently serves on the board of directors at the state level. So Geri, we appreciate you being with us today to share your story. I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Charlene. I appreciate it, Dr. Banta, excuse me. And good afternoon good morning to everybody. I'm running a few hours ahead of time here, prepping for this afternoon, so forgive me. I'm very honored to be your inaugural speaker, and I hope that over the course of the series that many of you come back and that you find some information and find some positions that you might be interested in as you're going through or as you're looking for a new job, and for the professionals on the phone as well, that this is an opportunity to see how other HIM departments may work outside of their area. So thank you very much. So little bit about me. That's a picture of my ugly mug right there. I'm a pretty outgoing person, and so if you see me at the meetings, if you see me at the convention, please come up and say hi to me. I love to get to meet people. I love get to talk to people, and especially fellow professionals and students coming up, because I was a student not too long ago myself. I am, while I actually got involved in health information management back in, and I'm not afraid of dating. I'm not afraid of dating myself here, but in '87 I graduated high school, and I started in a medical office at that point in time, but I didn't take any formal schooling. I graduated in 2012. So I am married. Been married to my husband now for 29 years, been together with him for 31. We have 4 children, and now our children are producing children. So I have one almost year and a half old grandson and another grandson on the way, actually sometime in the next week and a half, hopefully. So we're really excited as our family's expanding, and we do have a big family. I'm an animal lover, just about any kind, and I say that if you ever hear me talking about the family farm. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law own a farm. We've got pigs and chickens and cows on it. We had sheep, we had ducks. A little bit less easy to maintain, but I personally currently own 4 dogs and a turtle. And when I say 4 dogs, I'm talking about big dogs, and the turtle in the cage. I've done fish, we've done guinea pigs and hamsters and bunnies, the whole 9 yards. Animal lover. I am a band geek, and some of my children are also band geeks. That's obviously carried through the family. I played trumpet. I was in marching band throughout middle school and high school, and kind of carried that on when I have a daughter that plays clarinet and another daughter that plays baritone, and at least one of them was involved in the symphony band. So love my music, love my instruments. The next one there, tech geek. I don't When I say I'm a tech geek, I honestly, I love technology. I love applications. I love software. I've worked with computers of some sort since I was 8 years old. So it's not something new to me. I've watched a lot of evolution, and I feel like we're in a phase that if we can get things under control, especially when it comes to healthcare, for the opportunity for people to be involved in so many different fashions through technology, it just excites me. It's something that I really love and I really embrace. So when I went back to school, though, with those thoughts in mind, I was a non-transitional student. I didn't go back to school until 2009 and actually seek out a degree. Unfortunately for me, I became a perpetual student after that. There was so much information and I just kept going. So for those of you who are out there in that non-traditional range, not coming fresh out of high school into college, but who are doing a career change or something, can be successful about it. I have definitely learned a lot along the ways, and being non-traditional also means that you have a lot of experience in other areas, and it's actually realizing that many of those experiences actually make you suited for what you're doing, because they give you customer experience background, they give you real life application knowledge, depends on where you've been. As Charlene stated earlier, my education did start. I graduated with my AS in Health Information Technology Management from Santa Fe College, graduated May 2012. I continued on for my bachelor's at that point in time, but a year later I was actually able to graduate with my Healthcare Informatics Specialist Certificate, also from Santa Fe. So it was a special series of classes that was designed, and I did some project management during that time. So the combination actually helped me when it came time to take advantage of the HIT Pro training that I had gotten along with my AS to get that CHTS credential. Now that's a credential that's actually not supported anymore. You don't have to maintain any kind of CEUs for it, but if you have it, you can keep using it. It's just not a credential that you have to keep getting education for, and a lot of that really ties in other areas. After getting my AS, I went back to school, but I kept going after the degrees, and that's why I said I've kind of been a perpetual student. I got my bachelor's degree on a part-time basis. I did that in Healthcare Services Administration because there wasn't an HIM program where I was at, and I wasn't willing to travel to other schools to get a bachelor's in HIM. And this seemed to kind of work. It was a crossover between HIM and business administration, and really fed me a lot, and not just in traditional, but in non-traditional, and gave me a different way to look at HIM statistics and to look at basic operational functions and, you know, running a department, an HIM department or HIM in any facility, just about, to try to look at it from those different perspectives. So I really felt like that degree kind of expanded me, but it also pushed me on towards my next level, because I did discover during that I really, in addition to some of my other areas, I was really good with data analysis. I really enjoyed digging into the numbers, and so when I did graduate with my BS, I did decide to go ahead and go on to a healthcare informatics degree. That's really, we were actually in the middle of accreditation with KHIM at our school. Not sure, I believe we did end up getting accredited, but I'm not sure how that's going to work for us, because there's not a supported credential anymore for the healthcare informatics with the changes that HIMA has gone. But that doesn't mean that you're not eligible to get a credential with HIMSS or AMDI or AHDI, excuse me. There's different informatics credentials that can be gotten that are not just HIMA related. But I still think it doesn't matter where the credential comes from. The information is really relevant all the way around. And so I've continued on that course. I've had some debate of when this is over and done with, whether or not I would continue on. for a PhD, but I'm not sure right now. I think I might hold off for a while, but I do feel like this has set me up for a wide swath. And one of the areas that I was looking with this is long term. I was hoping to be able to give back to some of the colleges and give back in the education field by working potentially as an adjunct at one of the facilities by having my master's. That was something that Vision 2016, HIMA, put out there, that they wanted their educators to have at least a master's degree. And so I knew at that time I wanted to teach, and that's one of the main reasons why I kept pushing on. I do have two credentials, the RHIT and the CHTS. I am planning on sitting for the RHIA this year under the HIM Reimagined provisions that have been made. So I am planning to have that upgraded since I do have the bachelor's degree. It's just not been something that's actually landed on my schedule yet. So, but I find that these credentials, they're really have been helpful for me in a lot of the things that I've done throughout the organization where I go. I am affiliated on the national level with HIMA, with my state designation as Florida, so Florida HIMA. And because of where I'm at, I'm in the Northeast region, and I've been very active in all three levels of that. I am, as Char said, I'm current past president for Northeast HIMA. I've actually came in as committee chair, and I was a recording secretary, and then past president. So I've worked my way through, and I've seen a lot of changes that have gone there. I volunteered on state level. I have actually participated on an education committee on a HIMA level, as well as participated in one of their job task force. So a lot of times they'll actually take a task force and put groups together to say, okay, we're looking at these credentials and we're trying to take people who actually have these credentials and get an idea of what you really do and how we need to adjust these credentials. So I've been involved in that level. I am members of HIMSS, the HFMA, which is the Healthcare Financial Management Association, and I'm a member of the Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society, which just means I'm very anal about my grades. So I want to talk a little bit about my career path, where I started coming out of school and where I am now. Right before I graduated high school, the college classes, I managed to actually get tied up with a private psychotherapist in the area who was looking for somebody to come in, and they had bought an actual EHR, had no clue how to set it up. They didn't have any of their documentation scanned. They didn't have any of their patient information electronic, no insurance. Everything was still being done manually by hand to submit items. And so it kind of came in as a fresh face recommended by my program director and landed the position. And I spent about 4 years with her. It was not an easy run because she didn't have exactly a normal office space being a therapist. So I had to work after hours and on weekends. I never worked technically with her in the office, so we had to have a good communication level. But over the course of 4 years, I did get her EHR set up. We got her coded in with her charge master of what codes that they used. We set up an actual document imaging and retention program for her. We got all of her coding and reimbursements done electronically. And fortunately, release of information with her wasn't huge. We might have gotten a release every couple of months, but I think that was more of what she was working with. She worked with some specialty groups, like in our area, Partnership for Strong Families. So she dealt with abused children, abused spouses, things like that a lot. And so she really didn't get a lot of requests, which was I found really interesting as far as that goes. But I did end up leaving her when we ran into a headbutt situation where I felt like one of the things that she wanted me to do was she wanted me to bill an insurance company for and prefaced it with the patient has approved this, which made me even more have the heebie-jeebies. So don't be afraid to stand up for your ethics and your beliefs and what you're doing, because she wanted me to bill the insurance company for legal work, legal representation that she'd done when she'd been at court for this particular patient, and we had to part ways because I wasn't willing to get involved in that. And as much as I explained to her that this wasn't legal, this wasn't ethical, she had that old mentality of, I'm just a small company, they're not going to look at me. And I went, I have a credential and they are going to look at me if this ever comes up, and so I'm sorry, but we're going to have to wait. But I did learn a lot being there, being the only one setting up the office. And then as we moved on and she started being able to take on more patients, I actually had staff under me who were coming in and doing the coding and documenting all the bills. So it was a really big expanse for me there over 4 years for something starting before I ever graduated. Right after graduation, I started at UF Health Shands. So I was working both of those jobs at the same time, and I took an entry-level position over here at Shands and their support services team with a position that is, the name does not exist. It's actually a data management analyst, I believe, right now, but it used to be called a physician communication assistant. And that position was primarily focused on continuity of care documentation to external providers and getting that information out, making sure we had accurate provider information in the databases so that we weren't violating, HIPAA laws by sending documentation to wrong phone numbers to providers who were no longer with facilities. We had a whole group that was designed for that information. I spent about a year there, and during kind of across in that time, I've got 2013, 2014, I actually did another remote job from home because I wanted to see how I would like it. So I got involved in a Medicare risk adjustment auditing program that Innovative Clinical Partners did. And what was a great program, they worked with remotely with a bunch of groups. I realized that during this course that my coding was not as strong as I felt like it should be to be able to successfully read through documentation that changed on any one given patient from one visit to the next to properly determine HCCs and whether or not they were billing those out appropriately. So that was a very short period of time, and one that definitely cemented for me. I mean, I wasn't afraid to try something out, but it cemented for me that as far as being somebody who was heavily involved in coding, it wasn't an area for me. I did promote up within UF Health to our quality and operations department. It was an established position, but when I came into the position within a couple of months of being in it, we had a major Epic upgrade, and we had certain systems that we were using over here in the HIM department go away and change to others that were more integrated with our Epic systems. And so that position really kind of changed within 2 months of starting it. So we evolved the position. And it became we did some training with the staff. We started finding ways to pull data and do audit reports and help to do quality checks with the quality groups of finding where we were having problem areas with deficiencies with HMPs or discharge summaries or op notes to be able to try to better focus some of that and bring awareness to, because I know when I worked with my manager there, Gloria always kept getting told, oh no, our doctors aren't doing that. Their notes are in the chart. Their notes are in the chart. But when we would actually go back and show them physically, they're not in the chart. They weren't in by the data of this. They weren't in by the timelines that are established by Joint Commission, that are established by our medical staff bylaws. They weren't in here. people don't like being called out when they make errors, and so it made it very challenging for us. And so there was a lot of this going on, and a lot of audits and a lot of information. But it definitely was one of those positions that between it and the communication assistant, I had my hands in patient charts. We were looking through them. We were finding the right patients. We were figuring out the problems, and I became very, very knowledgeable of the ins and outs of just basic use of Epic and where the notes and the documentation were. And I took that knowledge along with my techie side and everything and my previous experiences, and I was able to roll them into the position that I have now, which is an EMR Clinical Analyst. So I'm going to go a little bit more into that role because I've got this broken down. Here's the job summary of it. So responsible for ensuring and improving data integrity in the electronic medical record. Identifies and coordinates clinical data corrections in the EMR. Monitors medical records and multiple reports. Tracks findings through collection and analysis. Identifies trends and issues and presents to appropriate parties. Provides end user system training, assists in development of the EMR and customer application testing via coordination with information services, and they provide on-call coverage. Now that's a nutshell view of our position that I've been in for 4.5 years, and let me tell you, this is exactly that nutshell because there are so many little nuances to what we do. Sometimes we're working with past medical history records. Sometimes we're in audit trails trying to track down who made a demographic change to this patient who had the same name as this patient, but their middle initials and social security numbers were different. So that's not just for training purposes, but to make sure that the records are complete and they're accurate and that we're not crossing over, because identity issues are a huge problem, and you will honestly be amazed at how many people have same names and same dates of birth in your own particular area, and not just the common names like the Smiths and the Joneses, but I have seen some really out there names and go, holy moly, there's 2 of them, or there's 3 of them. Which one's which? So it can be pretty crazy. UF Health works on a pay grade basis. Every position is assigned a pay grade, and pay grades have specified minimum and midpoints. Now I have the max of this position in italics because it's not really specified, but if you do the number extrapolation, you can see where it's at. When you move through pay grade positions, they use that minimum based on when you're coming in and where you're starting at, and the midpoint becomes a gauge, especially if you're starting a position, on when you get evaluated. Or not when you get evaluated, but when you're eligible for a raise. So my very first position here, I started at more than midpoint for it. So even though I had an evaluation in 6 months, I didn't qualify for a raise until the end of the first year. But as you move through pay grades, and if you move up through multiple pay grades, there's a bunch of little things that HR has in place with it. Of, well, you're going to get a 4% pay raise for upgrading, and if that 4% pay raise falls over minimum, and that's where you're at. But if it falls under minimum, then we're going to take you to minimum. And there's also limitations because we're an academic educational facility. They want us moving through positions. They want us to find new jobs and go learn new things. And so there's also this max level right here. Kind of is it's also a pay raise cap, because once you hit that max level, you no longer qualify for anything, but I think it's like a 1% annual pay raise. So those are things that you have to keep in mind when you're looking at the position. So how does that job description break down into the things that I actually have to do? These next couple of slides actually really detail more of what they're looking for, what I have to have as far as skills, what kinds of information I use to feed back, how I do that. So taking that first line, maintains integrity of electronic patient health records through reviews and audits of clinical documentation. I need to be able to have a knowledge of my anatomy, physiology, pharmacology, medico-legal statutes to ensure entries are complete, accurate, and comply with regulatory requirements. And that's not just state or federal regulatory. I have to actually be knowledgeable of our facility policies, of our medical staff bylaws, of various things that are coming up, and I have to sometimes comply with that or lead questions on that. And a good example might be last year, almost a year ago in March, CMS put out new regulatory information stating that medical student notes or medical students could be a part of the notes now. They weren't before. They weren't allowed for their notes to be used, but only certain components can be used, and they have to be attested in a certain way. And so I was getting that information and started collecting questions of potential problems and issues that might come up, where we needed to be looking at, coordinating with my team to make sure that we all had same ideas. And it still didn't end up stopping the problems, because within a department, making it aware does not necessarily mean that your information is going to get across the facility. So we still had issues, but those are the types of things that they're looking at when I'm pulling these data and pulling the information and pulling case studies. Where's my information coming from, and how does it apply? So those are really good things to know. Coordinate the correction of inaccurate clinical data, identifying everybody who's affected in the documents to make the changes. And sometimes those changes are a nurse, sometimes they're your actual doctor or a surgeon or an anesthesiologist, and you have to be able to know who you've got to go to, what components of the record that they're going to be going into, because not everybody has access to the same thing. We do use user access roles here, so we have to work in a testing environment with these to actually find who the appropriate parties are, to be able to understand how the templates are built, to who actually fixes it. Does this go to transcription, or is this going to be our team? Is it the resident, or is it the actual provider? If they've attested to it, do we have to remove the attestation before they can make the edits? Those are the kinds of questions that we deal with on a daily basis. And to follow that process through until it's completed. And sometimes that may be one single document, and sometimes that may be related to moving 3 months worth of documentation off the wrong chart off the wrong patient to the right patient, and making sure that every single item that has been entered from flow sheet data to scan documentation to notes is fixed during that time. And then we turn around and take that and develop policies and procedures and maintaining guidelines to put out for that information, to help provide education, to help get it out on the training sites, as well as going out and talking to them in person. The next component, analyzes data reports. Well, that's one of those areas that I'm good with. I mean, it's analysis of the data, whether it's coming from a report, whether it's trying to identify and see trends that are coming in, because we work off of service requests as well as email. So anything we get in saying, hey, I need this fixed, if it doesn't go to another team, we end up turning it into a service request, or they may have already created that. So we get a service request and we function off of a service request. So sometimes you start seeing the same person with the problem. This same person is submitting 10 service requests for A, B, or C, or we're starting to notice. In fact, we actually had this pop up again last year, which actually increased our workflow for a while, because there was a minor change that, or what was thought to be a minor change that was put into Epic that expanded the identity items. So when you typed in maybe a patient name, it came up with similar names or similar dates of birth. Well, what we had is through various departments, we had people who were so used to the first line being the patient that they were supposed to choose that they were actually inaccurately selecting patients because the first line was coming up with an alternate option instead of the one, especially if you're only using minor searches. If you use 3 letters of the last name, 3 letters of the first name, you might come up with 100 different options for the same person. So it was, we started identifying trends in that and take that back. So there's just different things that you have to be very aware of what's going on in your team, have good team communication, and see what's going on there to be able to then feed that back information back, which ultimately ended up resulting in, for that particular case, resulting in those changes to the match criteria being scaled back so that they were stricter instead of looser, and that cut the problems down tremendously with the wrong patient being selected. Serves as a customer resource for information services with development and upgrades to EMR. Participates in multidisciplinary planning sessions. Yes, those even apply to HIM teams. They're not just doctor level or forms committee level. We actually work with our HIM IS person here, but we might get calls from the patient management application team or the workflow team or whatever to find out, what our experience has been, where we've had problems. Can we help them figure out how to solve something, because we're in there messing with the charts. If they have any testing go, sometimes, spreadsheets, you have spreadsheet imports that get messed up, and so we're helping to try to clear up the database errors. And so, across the board, we're dealing with the documentation and the processes and the customers, both internal and external. We get calls from patients, we get calls from doctors. So we're working in any number of different areas there as we go through this information in any number of different teams, and not just helping them, but a component. We're not I don't want to say we're not a centralized. We have a big HIM department, but UF Health is an integrated system. So we have clinics and we have offices, and there's the University of Florida physician side that's under UF Health. So we work with them as well, and some of their processes and their policies and requirements on that side are different than on the actual hospital side. So we have to be very knowledgeable across the board on those. Assist physicians and others with chart correction. Well, that goes back to the training. We may be able to remote to them. We may be able to simply handle it over the phone. If you're in the charts and you get working with it, you actually get surprised as to how many times you kind of get memorized a basic process. I need to figure out how to get in and do an HMP interval workflow. Okay, I need you to log into the chart here. I need you to click on this column. I need you to click on this tab, and I need you to go down to here. Well, that may work for most providers, but it's not necessarily the same thing for a PA or for an ARNP. So we have to be familiar with those to help them. So we have tools that are available, and sometimes those tools are, while we've got the customer on the phone, we're going to remote to your computer so that we can see what you're doing, so we can guide you with that. And so that serves as an EMR clinical expert resource for physicians. That is actually pretty serious. We get a lot of calls over here, and if we don't know how to do something, we got to get on it right away to try to help them do it or find out why it happened or get them to the right person. So that expert resource is also an expert customer service resource. Those were the basics of the job role, but under UF Health, we also have a whole hospitality focus. So when we're reviewed, whether it's every 6 months or annually, we're reviewed on our hospitality, how well we communicate. Are we team players? How well do we adapt to change? And that's a big one, because you can say you adapt to change, but some people may not always respond positively to those changes, so we get graded on those as well. Problem solving. Can we sit down and fix a problem, and do we know how to identify the resources and the levels and ways that we need to go to be able to fix those? Developing self and others. It is one of those items that could be as simple as sharing. Are we sharing what we've learned during our service request? If we see items in articles or that are going on our intraweb or whatever that are relevant to our position, do we share that information? Do we not just coach ourselves, but do we coach the people that we're working with on ways that they can prevent these problems for the future? So some of these seem to tie together, but they're also considered a different component. And of course, employee quality and safety, how well we work, with trying to make a safer place as part of our job functions, even if we don't deal with patient care. So this benefits of the role it's really kind of, I think that for everybody it really depends. For me, I find that one of the benefits of this position is that it is a unique position because we do get to work with both the hospital and the clinics. Even though we are in the hospital side HIM department, our team actually gets more of its work from the clinic side than we do from the hospital side. So that's really unique because we get to see both sides of the charting and the requirements. We get to see best practice advisories, and we get to see decision support tools triggering and things like that we wouldn't normally during the course of a hospital say. So there's always something new to learn because of that. We're dealing with upgrades. For example, we have an upgrade coming next week, and over the course of the last week, we've gotten about 5 different emails from 5 different areas about the upgrades that are coming to those areas, and we have to be knowledgeable about all of those because an error can happen the day after the upgrade, and if they call you for help and you don't know what's going on, you're really kind of left out on the cold, and that lessens their trust of you. So you've got to be educated on the things that go. So there's always something new to learn, and as a result of that, our position is constantly evolving because we're getting new functions that other teams were doing that they decided, oh wait, whoa, this is not an area that we cover. For example, there's another team out there that's called the ambulatory team, and they deal with our patient portal, MyChart, and labs and x-rays and things that get released. Eventually they get released to MyChart, and various errors or result comments or this, that, or the other, or that they decided that the volume was too much for their other functions because they were an information services team. So they're wanting our team to take over if something ends up out in the patient's MyChart portal, an error, that we're the ones who actually go in and remove it from the portal. Another one that we are expecting to be coming on us in the next couple of months is the same way. We use a service for Health Information Exchange, for HIE, called Care Everywhere. So other facilities that have Epic can actually link to our medical record and get our medical record on their side. Well, again, sometimes errors happen. Patients get admitted under the wrong charts or whatever. And so if information like that happens, you have to unlink the charts, not just on your side of the facility where it was created, but you have to unlink them on the other facility side to get them to start with a clean slate when they relink, once the patient has given permission. So that's another area that we're expecting to come to us, is to be able to handle those unlinks because we tend to be the ones who use them most during merging patient charts or moving notes or contact moving a patient from one patient to another. Another benefit is being as an HIM professional, doing those CEUs, staying aware of what's going on, I really get to use my HIM skills over here. I have to know what's going on, with the legal and regulatory side of it. I have to understand how to create and generate policies and procedures and how to find them and how to apply them and use them to what I'm doing relevant for that. So it really allows me to grow my current skills and learn new ones. And one of the things that I think is a big advantage, even if you're doing it remotely, the chance to work with a provider one-on-one, because we don't get a lot of face-to-face time with them anymore, being an electronic facility, being able to work with them one-on-one on the phone, to talk them through somewhere, to remote to them and show them, well, why don't you try this or do that? There's so much gratification in actually speaking with a provider who goes, oh, I didn't know that. That's awesome. Thank you for telling me that. Or, I spent a long time since I've done this, and now that you've shown me, it's jogged my memory, but I really appreciate you being calm as you handle it. They are very rewarding elements and components to a job that can be pretty stressful sometimes. So now that we've gone through the benefits, I'm going to go over some of the challenges. Not everybody is big about being on call, and because we are a pseudo information services team, we are not actually information services, but because some of the items that have to be done on an emergency basis, on an on-call basis, we all take on call. And our on-call team has expanded, but for the longest time, it's been like you're on call 1 week out of the month, period, no matter what. And sometimes that means a couple of years in a row, you may hit the same holidays because you're literally rotating. So that can be a very frustrating part when you wake up at 2 in the morning because the beeper is going off and you fall out of bed because you can't figure out where your purse is to shut that annoying beeper up. Chart correction. This is one of my personal little things. I think the name is misleading. Yes, we're doing chart correction, but because we're clinical analysts, we're not clinicians. And so we don't have permission to actually make the changes. And more often than not, we get a provider going, I need you to fix this. No, I can help you fix it, but we're not going to fix it for you. You need to know how to go back in and do these items. You need to be able to do them right. And we're not clinicians. We're not allowed to fix them. So it does make that challenging because they're going, but you're chart correction. So staff turnover tends to cause repeat trends of the same issues, the same problems. We are an academic teaching facility, so every year in July we have new residents coming in, and by September you can tell that they've made it through whatever initial training programs, because in September our service requests line, and it's all from residents who, oops, I did this, oops, I went into the wrong chart, oops, I don't know how to fix this, I don't know how to get here. So you do see a lot of the same issues over and over because of that staff turnover. That some people can find that frustrating sometimes. Because many items are clinically related, we do have trouble finding teams to work with for things that we can't fix. And when I say that, I mean there are information services teams that do training, there are information services teams that do builds, but there are also teams that are out there dedicated to the radiology unit or to the lab unit or something like that. And you get a lot of pushback from the IS teams going, well, we're not clinicians either, so we're not going to make these fixes, and they shut you down sometimes because they don't want to have anything to do with trying to figure out how to fix it. So sometimes you have certain errors that are really difficult to resolve because you have to track down which manager in the department actually has access to do it, or which super user in the department has access to do it. And because we're so big, that's not always an easy item to do. To me, this one's a big area. We work with the IS teams, but when the upgrades, when changes come in, I don't personally feel like we have as much input to the IS teams as we should have because we're just HIM. And that is, as a HIM professional in this facility, that is probably the one thing that bothers me most, because I feel like HIM should own everything, and they don't. So there's still some amount of siloing that we're working with and trying to work through. And the biggest challenge for this position is that there's really a limited upward mobility in this position. In UF Health, there are all kinds of positions. You can go off to the IT team, or you can go to Access Center, or go work in this department or that team and still have HIM functions. But within the actual HIM team, the only way to go up from here is to go to a manager position or to change and go to coding. So you have to, if you want to keep working within those HIM functions, you have to find another area or another team that's looking for somebody with those HIM background. For me, with my background, a logical path for me to go is to go into information services or our IT department and try to work more with the HIM portions of the applications, be it coding, be it analysis, be it workflow or process coordination, helping to set up things with new clinics coming on board. That's kind of where I feel like my mobility has focused, but I think a lot of that really depends on where you're strong at. And I'm a strong suit on quality and compliance as well as the technology. So that's why for me, I feel like it's that way, but somebody else may see taking this information and what they've learned with this and being able to go to a clinic as a workflow coordinator. Or as a specialist within the team to help them get certain items done. So that's really where it's kind of, I can't really provide a specific career track, just that I have been able to, over the years, to take what I've learned in each different area and pull it all into one as being an actual resource within the department that's got a lot of experience in the different components, and as well as has the tech. I can tell you a lot of times what's going on with your computer. I can tell you what's going on with your network. So it just depends on your interests. Now, I do have some recommendations as a student, as a new professional. Explore your interests. You don't just go to, I guess some people do, but you go to school and you learn a lot of information about HIM and you cover a lot of different areas, but you don't always know which area is going to be your prime interest. So when you get into something, don't be afraid to explore. Don't be afraid to start in an entry-level position and take a chance to, okay, well, this isn't really where I want. Let me go try this department and see, because every time you switch, you're learning a new component, you're gaining more skills, you're making yourself more valuable to the team, to the department as you expand, and you have a chance to really find something that makes your days at work feel like nothing. You enjoy them, you're happy to come to work, you really look forward to doing the work, or you're some level of that. Next recommendation is to network. And anybody who knows me knows our president and our current president-elect for Northeast, knows Lee Starling and Nita Thompson, who are previous presidents. Networking is really important. In fact, Julia McCurry, the current president, ended up landing her job with Mayo because of the people that she had networked with. And I don't want to say her current job, but landed a job at Mayo many years ago that has evolved into a great position for her because of her networking. And I honestly have to say that when you go out for your internships, when you go out for your PPEs, when you go out and you just go to the hospital, just talk to them like human beings and network with them and get to know them and ask some questions, because you never know when those components, whether it's a physician or whether it's an HIM professional, are going to be able to be there in your corner and help you get through. That said, volunteering. Volunteer at the facility you're interested in going to if you can get there, or any facility around it where you can start getting experiences. Volunteer with your regional organizations, because volunteering is going to help you with networking too. You're going to be working with these professionals. They're going to get to see your skills, what you have to offer, you know, what kind of suggestions that you have for the future when they're talking, because I'm sorry, I don't think that there's a single meeting that you go to that you don't end up talking about problems that you are having with your job, or problems that you're having with release some information or whatever. And people have information to volunteer, but you get more attuned to that by being out there, by volunteering, because you're working with those people. And then get involved. That's not just the volunteering, the networking, but that's getting involved with that, what actually matters to your profession. Talking to your senators, being aware of the regulatory changes that are coming up. Actually take the time. We get our credentials and we're only supposed to have, 20 CEUs every 2 years, and that's easy to get, but how about going for 50 or 60 or 80? Because the more information that you learn along the way, the more that you're involved with what's going on, the better of a grasp that you have, and the better of a employee you become in the facility that you're at. So this really is my level of recommendations there. And at this point in time, I've talked my butt off, and I would love to know if anybody has any questions.
Thank you so much, Geri. So before we open up the lines, we did have a few questions come into the chat. So I don't know if you're able to see those and want to just run down the questions and answer those.
Let me look and see. I'm going to have to get out of this. All right, there's chat. Okay.
I can read them to you if you'd like.
Sure, go ahead.
So, is the healthcare services degree you have from Santa Fe comparable to the healthcare BS from SJR State? So this would be a question for one of our advisors. I don't think this would be a question that we could answer on this call, but we will have my contact information up at the end, and feel free to shoot me an email and we could connect you with the right person that can do a comparison of programs. I know at SJR State we have a bachelor's of organizational management that may be able to have a healthcare focus, but I don't want to give you incorrect information. Are your certifications nationally recognized?
Yes, they are. My RHIT credential is actually from, is an NEFHIMA-based credential. So was the CHTS credential, that was an NEFHIMA-based. So yeah, those are nationally recognized, and I do my CEUs to maintain it.
Another question, how do I stand out? What could be stopping me from landing a new role? I work at UF as a CSR in the call center and have applied for several positions, but they are all declined before I am interviewed. Right now, I have a general AA and 2 years of experience as a CSR. I have my resume looked over already by HR and have made changes to it. Any recommendations?
So there would be a couple of things that I might suggest in here with this. Number one, an AA is just a general degree. It doesn't give you any specialties in those areas. It's a 2-year degree. So perhaps if you're looking to get into HIM, if you're looking to get into coding or quality or anything else like that, maybe consider going back and getting an AS degree, or working on a coding certificate, or just taking classes in general that you can put down on there, because there is going to be a lot of positions that, while it may list a credential preferred, but not mandatory, they are looking at experiences. They are looking at how much you actually have been in the chart. And some of those CSR positions, I don't know if we're talking access center, if we're talking patient financial services or within a clinic, so I don't want to be too generalized there. But some of those CSR positions don't necessarily have the prereqs to get you there. So you may have to take a look at what position you're going for. Some of our entry-level positions over here in the HIM department are going to be our document imaging specialists and our deficiency analysts. So you absolutely want to kind of get entry level and go that way to start before you go up to some of the other positions. I would also suggest find a mentor, find a career advisor, find somebody who can help you with your resume. Look at your resume. A lot of resume services, a lot of the facilities, and I know UF Health does to some extent too, they work off of keywords. And if they don't see the certain keywords in your resume, you're not going to get picked because you don't look like you qualify. So you want to make sure that your resume truly reflects what you do in the lingo that they're looking for. So if you know how to use the patient EMR to, find A, B, C, or D, then you want to get those proper words out. So I would say there's two elements there. Go back to school, take some classes, take some information. Find somebody in HIM, I'll add this as a third one, find somebody in HIM who's willing to work with you, introduce you to people, and things like that who might be able to help that way. And third, take a look at your resume and try to find somebody who can help you update it so that it is going to catch HR's attention when they're doing the first look through.
Do you feel your position will complicate as technology progresses?
Yes, it has complicated. As I'm not going to lie. In 4.5 years of being in this position, there are things that I have seen pop up now that weren't here at the beginning. And let me just give an example. Epic uses Haiku and Cantu as a smartphone and tablet component to Epic. So you can be on your smartphone and access a patient chart, document the place orders and different things like that. Well, one of the common items has come with that where in the past, every consent stayed in a physical form until it got scanned into the chart. Now we're having where providers are taking photographs of a consent. It goes in the chart as a photograph so they don't see it because the document type is not a consent. That said, or they forget to change to the correct patient, and so they take a picture of something and it ends up on the wrong person's chart. That's just a small example of it, but I absolutely believe that some of the technology items do make things more complicated because if everybody's not on the same page, great, you can take that photograph, but I still need you to send me the physical consent so it can be scanned into the chart so that we can then remove the photograph and have the proper consent file in there, and it never gets here. Those create what I would think would be big problems and different issues along the way. And that's just one example. But yes, I do think that there are a lot of potential challenges as the systems evolve, as you're linking with HIE information with other facilities, and you can't control those other facilities. You can only control what's going, what your little component that you're working with. Yeah, there are potential problems that definitely need to be addressed and definitely keep us busy.
Great challenges bring great opportunities, right? How about roles for part-time work in your field?
I can honestly tell you, I don't know of any part-time positions ever here in the HIM department. It's just not something that exists now. There may be part-time positions in coding positions or in certain things in other areas, but most of the things that I know of are all full-time. regular, not temporary position.
Did you apply for the new position while moving through your career positions, or were you offered the positions with your experiences?
I applied for each one of them. I applied. And I've had other applications that I put into different areas that I had very similar experience. I was declined before, that I thought I was qualified for a skill that I was declined without even an interview. I've had other ones that I've interviewed for and not gotten. But yeah, every single one of these position moves, I've actually applied for it and then gone through the interview and a peer interview process, and then I've been offered the position.
And when switching over as a small facility to more advanced technologies, is the cost a big hit? Do they have any help, or is the switch voluntary?
I'm gonna kind of feed on some of my current education with that.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that when you're switching technologies to more advanced technologies, cost is going to be a big hit, but some of that can be mitigated by the amount of research and preparation that you do on the front end. For example, if you're going from a paper to an electronic health record and you're in a small facility, maybe it is advantageous to go for that web-based service instead of going for an Epic installation. Also, it may be more beneficial for you to find a facility to partner with so that you can piggyback off of those technologies as opposed to taking that cost on for your own self. And as far as the switch being, do they have helper switches voluntary? A lot of that is really, that comes from the strategic operations plans of the facilities as to what they decide to do and where they seek the help from, because you may, if you decide to go with a vendor, you may have actual assistance from the vendor built into the contract that you've purchased, or they may train people in your facility to do it themselves. So there's not a hard answer on that, or not an easy answer on that, because it really just depends on the technologies that you're planning on implementing, the kind of buy-in you have, and exactly how much that you need. A small 42-bed facility may not need what a small 80-bed facility may need. So you have to spend some time on that prep to do that.
Any advice on how to stand out during an internship?
Ask questions. Don't be afraid. Don't fall asleep during the internships. Actually, you'd be surprised how many people I see that come through here and sit in our area for internships, and you turn around and talk to them, and they're nodding off on you, and that's a really, in my opinion, it's a big no-no. You want to go in to an internship looking like you're planning on trying to get a job in there. That means don't go in too casual, don't go in too formal, but don't go in too casual. Speak well. Take notes. So that if somebody's talking to you and you don't understand something, or you want to come back around to it, take notes so you can ask questions and be engaged in what's going on. If you don't understand how something works, admit that, or ask that. Well, how does this work? How does this integrate with this? What do you guys do for this? You got to ask questions, because if you're engaged, we're engaged, and when we're engaged, we realize that you're interested. And if you're interested, you're going to get a lot more response and a lot better feedback than somebody who's just there to get it over and done with. And at least in our facility, a large portion of our people have been here 7, 10, 15, 20 years. They know when you're interested.
All right, well, that's all the questions in the chat box. Before we open the lines, I would like you to switch over to our last slide so that those who do need to drop off will go ahead and have the information they need to request their CEU credit.
Can you see that?
Yep, thank you. So if you
Okay.
do want to receive that one CEU for attendance today, just shoot me an email. There's my email on the screen there. It's my name, Charlene Banta at sjrstate.edu, and I'll be sure that you get that. And at this time, I'm going to unmute all. We'll ask if you're not speaking, if you don't have a question, go ahead and mute yourself just to kind of control background noise. So everybody's mic should be open. Any other questions for Geri?
Don't be shy.
Well, if not.
Hi, good afternoon.
Go ahead.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Nadia Maddox, and I don't have a question because you were so detailed and thorough, but I just want to tell you thank you for taking the time to go over this part of your career path with us, and taking over 60 minutes out of your day to explain in detail. I greatly appreciate it.
It's not a problem. I'm more than happy to help. I think, any of you guys who are on here at any point in time, like I said, seek out my ugly mug at any one of these meetings or something like that, because I'm happy to talk. I mean, I'm a recent student. 2012 graduation is really not that long ago, and I'm still a student, so I know what it feels like, and I'm still trying to work through my path and find new positions and stuff like that, so I can relate. And I'm always happy to work with the students because I feel like you're our future, and I'm part of helping to educate our future, our future leaders, our future career professionals, and no, I'm more than happy to be here to share with you guys if it gives you any kind of insight and any kind of ideas. So thank you for having me, and thank you, Char, for doing this. I think it's a great thing that you're offering. Anybody else?
I have one question. During a convention, if you've never been before, what should I expect as a student?
Depending on when you're going during the convention. If you're going the whole time for the convention, there's student tracks. There's going to be a lot of people around. We have, I think as far as the information goes, you want to make sure you're ready to take notes, that if you have questions that you ask them. If you're in a particular region, most of us in our regions, we wear armbands that say we're from a particular region or that we're leaders. So seek out people from your area and ask them if they can introduce you to other people. The conventions are great, but they can be long. Sometimes you end up picking a session that you realize that you're actually not interested in at all. But it can be, during the day, it can be pretty chaotic because you're coming and going from sessions and you're getting in there and then you're going to this. And, I just feel like when you go, make sure that the day, that if it's one day or if it's all days, try to go with somebody that that helps, and try to already have somebody from your region that you've met, that when you see their face there, that they can help you, especially if it's your first convention, to try to say, okay, hi, good to see you. Let me introduce you to, because those are your inroads of the networking. As far as the sessions, you're going to get anything depending from coding to, last year we had conversations about what's good professional attire for HIM students. Resume building, seeking out jobs, as well as the regular sessions where you may be sitting in on how to identify an opioid user, or your keynote speakers. So take some time to look around and take some time to go to the exhibit hall. I see a lot of students who go through the exhibit hall and they're walking through and they're not engaging too much. And if you find an exhibitor that has something that you're interested in, don't wait for them to ask you. Ask them, how does this apply to this? Or, how does this work with this, or something like that, and get them talking about their product. And even though you're a student that may not be a facility associated with a facility, you can take it on and ask those same questions. Well, how did you get where you are now? Use it as an opportunity to gain some information. And again, every convention is slightly different. Just remember, there's multiple sessions going on. Find somebody that you know and seek out other people to meet. Those are the three biggest things to me.
Okay, thank you.
I'm doing an internship. Are you basically shadowing someone?
Depends on the facility that you intern with. Some of your smaller facilities that you intern with might actually have you doing work. I need you to work on prepping these documents for scanning. Or I've actually had one of the internships that I did where I had to actually create a policy. Another one where I did an ROI. So different things like that may happen during it, but other facilities you may simply be exactly that, shadowing with somebody. We try to do kind of a combined here at UF Health, depending on what area you're in and whatnot. So you might be sitting with a couple of other people and talking with somebody about their position, and they'll show you how they do that and the different tools that they use and what they do. And some of them may actually have you doing it. So it really just depends on where you go. I can't say that there's a hard set way for that to happen.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Well, if not, that will conclude today's session. Geri, thank you so much for being here with us. You've had an impressive career path in the 8 years since you graduated. I think it's a perfect demonstration of the opportunities that exist in health information technology and kind of the exciting ability to transform clinical practice. And I have to say I'm impressed with the multiple jobs you've held while continuing to pursue your education. So amazing.
Yeah, people keep telling me I'm crazy. I just don't listen.
Well, we hope that you'll join us for future sessions. We do plan to hold these monthly, the first Wednesday of each month at the same time, and hear the stories of different health information technology professionals and kind of expand perspectives of the opportunities that there are in the profession. So again, thank you for joining, and thank you everyone who took the time out of your day to be here, and we will see you next month.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me talk my mouth off, and you guys all have a wonderful day.
You too.